So, we have our cigars. Well,
Yep.
I have my cigar.
I got a pipe.
Is this compliments of anyone today, or just compliments of Christian B?
Well, I feel like it's always compliments of one of the Christians. But compliments of my why can't I say it? I can never say
Your
it right.
suppository?
Yeah, mysuppository.com. I'm not ready to be be by that.
Okay, that's good.
mycigarpack.com.
Yes. Well, thank you, my cigar pack.
Yeah.
Smoking a Aldino
Sounds right.
Giulio R. E. Nora.
And it's a Robusto.
Yeah, it's yummy.
Light. Looks a little light coloring.
It's a light. It's pretty mild.
Kind of reminds me of a Connecticut wrapper.
Okay.
I'm going to go with that. I'm going to say it's a Connecticut wrapper.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
You know, the leaf.
Okay.
The leaf, you know?
Sure, yeah.
This thing.
Yep.
But check out mycigarpack.com. Great cigar subscription service. That's a mouthful. Just, can't say it.
Yes.
Subscription service. Christmas is coming up. Check them out. We also love Standard and Twain. Give them a whirl. Give them a look. For the dude or dudette that loves cigars in your life.
Yes.
Is dudette still a thing?
It is my book. But I'm, old and weird. So.
Howdy, by the way. Hi.
Yes. Hello.
Hi. So we're here.
We're here in my garage. Garage,
I think. Christian has gone above and beyond, and he has prepared, I would say, ample notes, show notes, for our time here. So, and there's some guys yelling off out over there.
Got some guys that should be listening to this podcast.
Yeah, probably.
Christian.
Yes, sir.
What is the hardest thing you've ever done in your life? What? Before you answer that, what are we drinking today?
Oh, man. We're getting into some Lismore 18. Now, I figured because Christian went ahead and just prepared an epic topic, basically where I just had to show up and do nothing. He's going to carry all the weight here.
No, wow, that's a high
I figured I would bring him a cigar and bring him an 18-year-old Scotch. So Lismore Speyside Scotch out of Scotland, if you are familiar with the regions. Christian, don't worry, it's just from Scotland. That's all you need to know.
All I need to know. It's good. It's not peaty or smoky, and so I like it.
Yeah. And so it's nice and light and probably pairs accidentally, this is not intentional, accidentally decently with the cigar you're smoking.
I would have just taken and said you intentionally paired them, but whatever.
Well, I'm just that kind of guy. So Lismore 18, it's a single malt Scotch from Scotland, nice light flavoring. We drink a lot of bourbon on the show, so I figured, hey, why not some Scotch?
I know, that's good. We don't have to rename the podcast to Bourbon.
Single malt dads?
I don't know.
That sounds weird, by the way. Old-fashioned dad. That's what we are.
We're keeping the name.
Keeping it real.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, let's get into this.
Yeah, let's do it. Ready? We are the Old Fashioned Dad podcast, seeking to love dads and men through the person and work of Jesus Christ, while entering into tough conversations on marriage, mental health, sex, and parenting, all while sipping good whiskey.
And we're back.
Hey!
So, I've recently taken up the 75 hard challenge.
And tell me more about that, because I'm like, okay, what is this?
Sure. So it's not really it's not a physical challenge. It's more of a mental toughness challenge. And so one of the leaders of the real estate team I'm part of, nationwide with EXP. So he did it. He was pretty quiet about it. I occasionally see like a 75 hard post. But then he got on a team call and it's like, hey, I don't normally do this, but here's before and after picture. This thing really works. And he went from, kind of frumpy dad bod to like cut and jacked. But that's kind of one of the side benefits. So it kind of got me sold. It's centered around mental toughness, basically intentionally getting into challenging, not situations or whatever, but doing things that are mentally tough, that take discipline and work and are inconvenient to make you mentally tough, and byproduct is also physically tough. So the requirements are 2 workouts a day, 2 45-minute workouts a day. It could be whatever you want, but one of them has to be outside. They could both be outside, but at least one of them has to be outside. You have to read 10 pages in a physical book every day. Drink 1 gallon of water. Follow a diet. Doesn't matter what it is.
A gallon of water every day?
Gallon of water every day.
Dang.
Which, after the first couple of days, became not so hard is just kind of getting in a habit of like
Yeah.
how much you have to drink. So I got to drink 6 of these.
So during this podcast, will you get up and have to go pee?
I very well might have to. And then no cheating on meals or alcohol. Now for me, I'm using this as an excuse to jumpstart getting back into shape because I got injured like 5 years ago and I haven't really worked out since then regularly. And so you can listen to like this guy's podcast and stuff, and he's like, hey, no cheating, and but he created it after conversation, whatever. But the idea is to for 75 days implement this routine so that you actually develop healthy habits, develop character. You accomplish something that was a challenge and was inconvenient, and makes you a better person.
Like that.
And so, and for me, since I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand all that stuff. I've done stuff that's way harder than this, physically and mentally. Not to, downplay this, but for me, like, I'm not a legalist. I'm like, hey, I'm going to have my serving of bourbon a week, and even though it breaks the rules, yeah, it's some guy's arbitrary rules. I understand the nature of it. I'm going to adhere to the rest of it. Be honest with it and whatever. And there's a nice app that goes along with it, and it's free. But I'm kind of using it as a jump start to get back into shape. And then there's like 12 other people in my group that are doing it all together. So they're doing little live messages within the closed group and stuff. And it's pretty encouraging, seeing it because they're in various states of physical fitness and life stages and whatnot. But it got me thinking. That's a really long introduction. But it got me thinking kind of about like what do we do in life that's difficult. And well, let me look at my notes, so I'm just rambling. But basically, thinking about, I guess I could edit the video too. So
We'll edit this out.
We'll edit this out. Yeah, it's kind of boring. So
B-roll.
Anyway,
well, you had a good question, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it got me thinking about the value of intentionally doing hard things.
Yeah.
Now we could maybe get into this a little bit later, but I was kind of thinking like some people are just born into hard lives.
Yeah.
And that, they don't really have a choice in, but we all have a choice of like how we respond to that. And I've seen the trajectory of people's lives go radically different directions based on if they look at what happens to them and they're a victim and everyone's out to get them versus, yeah, life's not fair and it's hard, but I'm overcome and I'm not going to quit and I'm not going to give in. Like those lead to very different trajectories. But it's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about like intentionally doing hard things, which you see certain examples of, maybe in everyday life, with maybe people exercising or reading books or whatever. And I was just thinking, what, do you regularly, push yourself or challenge yourself day to day, week to week, and why? I mean, is that a pattern in your life?
So when do I get to answer that question? What's the hardest thing that I've ever done? So later.
We'll get to that. That was our teaser.
That was a teaser. Okay.
That's our teaser.
Well, I gotta wait a little longer, guys.
So this is the lead up to that. Do you challenging things in your life?
Do I regularly challenge myself to do things? Yeah, I regularly do. Be that in business, be that in creating. I feel like I'm a very creative person, so like. I always have to be building and creating something, otherwise I feel like I'm just stagnant. So that can work against me as well, where my laundry list of things to do in a particular day could be so unreasonable, or there's so many expectations for it that I don't complete it, and so then or maybe I only complete half of it, and I dismiss like how productive and how much I challenged myself.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't complete it, so I suck.
Sure. I was thinking, because obviously I know you a little better. I mean, you do CrossFit.
I do that.
Most sane people would say that's pretty difficult. Some may say it's a cult.
It is a cult. It's a church.
Yeah,
There's no question on that. It's a church.
The Church of CrossFit. But it's something that it's not just an exercise routine. Like it's intentionally built around a small community to drive everyone to get better, and it doesn't really matter where you're at, just as long as you're moving forward from where you started. I mean, what's your experience been in that?
Yeah, so I joined CrossFit, actually this December will be 3 years.
Okay.
And I just needed something different than just simply going to the gym and just throwing some weights around. And my brother-in-law, Aaron, he said, hey, why don't you come to the gym with me, check it out. So I went, And I mean, it's very small group focused, and everything is pre-programmed, which I enjoyed. But like the kind of the menu of items that you see in a particular workout is it's varied.
Sure.
And so they're combining a lot of like Olympic weightlifting stuff, regular weightlifting stuff, and cardio stuff all into one thing. And you know, they have all these kinds of parameters set around it, like an AMRAP. We can go to these acronyms later, and WOD,
Yep.
and whatever else. But I remember the first month of doing CrossFit, my lungs were really challenged. My mental toughness was really challenged.
Sure.
Because like, for me, like if I was working out at the gym by myself with my headphones in, if I felt like, hey, I've reached my max, I'm out, I'm done. That's
Sure.
good. You know, I go home. But in the gym, like you could reach your max, you know, in a 20-minute time period, and you still got 20 more minutes to go. Like you still got 20 more minutes in that pain cave.
Mm-hmm.
And
Pain cave, that's good.
pain cave, yeah. And but I remember the first month, I just wanted to vomit all the time after.
Sure, I've done that a couple times during CrossFit.
Yeah. You're just like, because you're using all of your body. You're not just using like, I'm just using the triceps today.
Sure, it's about on full body motion.
Yeah, and I mean, I would also say that I've injured myself a decent amount doing CrossFit, not because I was taught wrong, but because I just felt like, well, I should be able to lift more weight because I'm strong, and who cares about technique? And you know, I've dislocated ribs, I've hurt my wrists, I've hurt my back. And that's not a big sell for CrossFit
you're not
right
really
now.
selling CrossFit, right?
Yeah, but the thing that's been really surprising is the overall, I would say, mental toughness that's come out of it. Because like, I handle a workout called the Murph. I know. You've heard of the
Yeah,
Murph.
it's usually a Veterans Day tradition, yeah.
Yeah, Veteran Day tradition. It's a hero WOD is what it's known. And
Or maybe Memorial
you
Day.
run a mile, and you
gnarly.
do 100 pull-ups, 200, like, I don't know, 200
push-ups, I
push-ups,
think.
and then
Yeah.
300 air squats, and then you run another mile.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
Yeah, it's tough, and I've done it a number of times now, and I've always improved my score to where I'm like, a lot of other stuff in my life in terms of noise got toned down.
Sure. Yeah.
So I know that there was an improvement to mental toughness.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, you know, the physical world, since, you know, we live very sedentary lives, you know, the hard things we challenge ourselves with tend to be in the physical realm of, you know, CrossFit or workout or marathons, you know, that kind of stuff. But I found that, you know, with my experience, like, we're far more capable physically and mentally than we think we are, which is what I think the downside of going to a gym is because it's you, and you go until you feel like it. You're like, oh, well, you know, I went to the gym. I did stuff.
You don't have,
Like,
I mean,
you're not
you
being
don't have
pushed.
anybody pushing you.
Yeah, most people aren't type A driven, you know, personalities to just, you know, force themselves to the point of discomfort, then pain, and then past that.
Yep.
While, you know, things like CrossFit or certain military training, like, it's designed that way. And
Yeah,
it
I mean,
pushes
you special forces training, right?
Yeah.
That's got to push you.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can get into that, but I mean, so getting back to kind of our question, I mean, so what's been the hardest thing you've done? I mean, CrossFit's pretty up there on a regular basis, you know.
I mean, maybe I won't go for the low-hanging fruit answers of marriage and parenting, because I mean that's been pretty hard.
That's more, yeah. Because I was talking with Jenny about this the other day, as I was kind of fleshing out what I wanted to say on the topic. And you know, like, parenting is like a marathon thing. It's not like here's this limited challenge with a beginning and an end for the sole purpose of getting physically fit, mentally fit, whatever. It's like, as a parent, you have to do it.
Yeah.
And then you could suck at it. You could take shortcuts. You could go for comfort. You know, because I mean, in America, life tends to be centered around comfort and ease. Like, that's our goal.
Yep, 100%,
Everything
100%.
is centered around how can I be as comfortable and work as little as possible.
Yep.
Which I think is why intentionally entering these things into our life is helpful.
Yeah.
And I try to tell my son that because, like, you know, I mean, kids, they like want to cut corners, right?
Yeah, and do we model it as parents, or
Right.
do we show like the value of hard work? You know, and I know that we've talked about that, you know, working with our hands and value of hard work in previous episodes. But so your question is, what's the hardest thing I've done maybe to date?
Yeah, I mean, what would you say? Okay, I'm really proud of this really hard thing I did.
Grad school.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say grad school would probably be one of the hardest things I've ever done, as well as, I feel like I can kind of attach it to this, building a mental health practice. But yeah, I mean, going to grad school, I was a knucklehead, man. I didn't know what I was doing. Coming out of my knuckleheadness, sort of. But let's see, I started grad school shortly after I got married. You know, so...
You're going to grad school while you're married? Okay.
Yeah, I'm 20... So I was 27, 28.
Okay. You had your first kid when?
In the last year of grad school.
Oof.
You know, and I had to work multiple jobs. I worked in special education, working with junior high students in special ed, and I mean, it was just all around tough. I mean, like, I think that's where I put my health really took a nosedive, put my body into some really bad places just because I had to stay up late, write papers, take care of special needs kids,
Sure.
And I'm a father. How the heck do I navigate that? You know, and I've only been a husband for maybe a couple of years.
Sure.
I don't got it nailed. Still don't have it nailed.
Yeah. I'm just learning.
I mean, I have it a little bit more new.
I'm realizing how much I don't have it nailed.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, no, that would be very challenging. I mean, I just skipped that. I'm like, I don't do college. That sounds hard.
Going to the military.
Going to the military, that's much easier. Yeah, I mean, for me, you know, I've done like a half marathon, did like a Tough Mudder with from guys from church.
Tough Mudder
years ago.
Those are no messing around.
Yeah, that was pretty fun because you basically combine half marathon with a whole bunch of obstacles, you know.
That does sound fun.
But I definitely have to say that the hardest thing I've ever done, where I'd say like you kind of find out what you're made of if you have it, was my special forces training.
Yeah.
I'll give you kind of a condensed version, but I've never really like, shared this publicly or whatever. But you know, essentially, I went in
First time right here.
first time exclusive. We need like a CNN. So I mean, I've been in the Army, the Washington State Army National Guard for 18 years now.
Yeah.
I initially started enlisting with the active duty because I wanted to go special forces. Well, initially I did my research. I'm like, okay, I don't have a girlfriend right now. That seems good. You know, I didn't really have anything holding me back, and no one in my family had ever been in the military. And I'm a little bit of a history buff, specifically American history, and I know and believe that this experiment of America is pretty unique, and I owe a lot of debt of gratitude to those who came before me, both in the military, government, you know, how it's been set up and everything. And so I wanted to kind of pay that forward. And so I wanted to serve in the military. I figured, well, I'll do my initial 4 years. If I don't like it, I'll get out. If I like it, I'll stay in. So I started enlisting active duty within one of my Christian mentors at the time. He's 8 years older than me. I think he's still in too. But he's like, let's take a step back. So I wanted, if I was going to join the military, I wanted to be part of the best. I want to train with the best. I want to be around the best. You know, I want to be part of the elite. So I started researching. SEAL. Well, I started researching the different branches, and I'm like, I don't like the water and swimming, so SEALs are out.
Done. Rule those guys out.
You know, like the Air Force has the PJs, the paramilitary, they jump in behind enemy lines and rescue down pilots. I'm like, that's badass, but I don't really have a proclivity towards the medical field, you know, not something I want to do.
You didn't mind jumping out of airplanes behind enemy lines?
I didn't mind doing that.
You're all right with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then, you know, the Army's got, they've got CAG, you know, which is like Delta, you know, it doesn't exist. But you can't directly go into that. Then there's the Green Berets, Special Forces, and Rangers. And I'm like, okay, I like the silent professionals, the Green Berets, you know, where basically they are force multiplier. They go in behind enemy lines and they teach. They teach guerrillas, they teach friendlies. They basically, as a 12-man ODA, go in and essentially, you know, empower the locals to, you know, rise up against, you know, whatever the oppressive dictatorship is and that sort of thing. But, you know, they don't get the sexy movies made about them like the SEALs, you know.
They get all the glory.
Well, there's, you know, friendly rivalry amongst the different branches and different special operation units and stuff. But I figured, okay, Green Beret, that's what I want to do. So I had enough, you know, friends who were prior military that like, you know, don't sign anything unless it's in writing. It doesn't count. So I made sure to get. So I actually went through the National Guard recruiter because my mentor said, you know, actually the success rate of becoming special forces is way higher through the National Guard than it is through active duty. And the reason for that is when you're active duty, you can elect to go through special forces training, but your unit doesn't have to give you time to train for it. They don't have the resources. They're actually motivated against it because they lose presumably a good soldier. In the National Guard, they actually have National Guard Special Forces units. And so I enlisted and got attached to 19th Group out here in Washington State, Alpha Company. And their sole job is to get you trained up to go to Special Forces selection and pass. And so you're actually way more equipped because you go there, they know what the standard is, they're training you for it.
Yeah.
You go off, so it took me 4 years from the time I joined to actually getting to Special Forces selection. And that's 3 weeks of the most miserable time in my life. The hardest thing I've ever done was selection. I passed, I got selected. A week later, I went to airborne school, which is another 3-week school, which most people are like, oh, it's really hard. But in comparison, I'm like, this is a cakewalk.
Compared to what you just
Compared
went
to
through.
what I just went through.
Yeah, all right.
Now, granted, the soles of my feet were literally peeling off, and so I was hobbling around pretty good. We had to do a bunch of running and stuff in airborne school. So, I was in a lot of pain, but it was nothing compared to, in Special Forces assessment and selection, you basically do a land nav week in the and then you have the STAR course, which is essentially you're alone by yourself, start in the woods at 2 in the morning. You've got your map, your protractor, your compass, and you do everything with a rucksack. So minimum weight 60 pounds, and that's before water. So you're carrying around 80 pounds, pretty much the whole time.
Perfect. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, you just get used to carrying around heavy weight. And so you do the STAR course, which is essentially you're not allowed to use roads or trails. You're just beating brush, through gullies and around lakes and stuff. And that's actually pretty scary because you've got a dummy rifle, a big hard piece of plastic. It's not a real rifle. And then there's packs of wild dogs out there in this.
So I guess you could
woods.
club them with your dummy rifle.
Yeah, it's a little unnerving, and you're not allowed to use any light. It's noise and light discipline, So.
Do you have a tent that you sleep in?
No, you just do it until you're
You
done.
don't. What am I talking about? I'm just this.
You catch a little nap at 2 in
snowflake
the morning.
over here with a tent.
At 2 in the morning you start. I think you've got 6 hours to complete. You've got 3. You do that 3 days.
Oh, you're not
going
to be taking any naps along the way.
No.
Yeah.
But you're covering. I think my first point was 12 kilometers away. So it's basically from one end of the map to the other. Before I found my first point, you got to do 4 points.
What does that work out to? 6 miles, 5 miles?
About 6 miles. Or
6
something
miles.
Like that, yeah. But you're talking breaking brush. It's not fast going.
Yeah, you're stepping over heavy underbrush and whatnot.
But anyway, so you're doing that, and then in combination with that during the day, you're also doing runs, which 6 to 8 miles.
So you get done with this Star Trail thing, and they're like, all right, go get your 12-mile run in.
Yep. And then you got forced rucks, which are essentially you're wearing your rucksack and you're going, and they don't tell you standards. You're not allowed to talk to cadre. You don't know what the standard is. They're just meet here at this time, go.
Bro, that sounds so badass.
It messes with people. I knew going into it. They're like, yeah, it's hard, but the hardest part is the mental.
Was there people that on that Star Trail thing? There's they get in the middle of it and they're just I can't finish. I'm done.
Yeah, people quit the whole time. The attrition rate's 85%.
What would happen if some guy just lost it out in the middle of the Star Trail thing? Do they come get him?
They've got cadre out there that are roaming, making sure you're
not. Oh, they're checking on
the
you?
trails and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, it's really hard. And then you do team week, which is all these obstacles. They give you a 3-wheeled Jeep, some ammo cans, and some lashings and poles, and they're all right, move that from here to
a 3-wheeled Jeep.
Yeah, so it doesn't roll. You've got to figure out how are you gonna.
How'd you get yours to roll?
I don't even remember. Well, and then they changed the leadership. So okay, you're the leader of this. So you got to act as a platoon sergeant and organize people. And everyone's tired and stressed out. And how do you handle stress? It's basically designed to get you to the point of failure and push you past it and see how you respond.
And you did.
Apparently.
Because you got in, right?
Yeah. So I got in. So I passed. That was hardest 3 weeks of my life.
Dang.
Oh, then when you're done with all that, you've got a
grad school sounds way easier.
21-mile ruck march. So that's 2.5 weeks of that, and then the final exercise is 21.
Wait, 21 miles in one sitting?
Yeah. Yeah, my feet hurt so bad, and I was jogging because it felt better. It was less pain than just walking. Like it was.
And I'm sure that's not over just flat terrain.
No, it's hills. It's the hills of North Carolina, you know. But anyway, really hard. Then went to airborne school a week after that, and then the Q course, which I thought would relatively be a breeze. That's basically the school phase to become a special forces soldier.
That's what they did like a reality show, I think, on Netflix some time ago, where I think they showed Rangers doing the Q course. Is that what it...
Well, Rangers don't do the Q. Discovery Channel had like a Hell Week
that might have been it.
thing where they showed like buds for SEALs and Special Forces assessment selection and stuff. At that time, because they've changed it all the time, so people don't really know what you're getting. At that time, I think they shortened it to like 2 weeks. Now it's back up to 3 weeks. But anyway, then you go through different phases when you get to the Q course, and so there's a land nav phase, it's called small unit tactics, where you basically learn Ranger tactics out of the Ranger handbook on how to move, do patrols in the woods and formations and hand signals and all that kind of stuff. And it was basically like selection for 6 weeks, and it sucked.
Wow.
But anyway, so that's the hardest I've ever done, and that pushed me way further past anything I thought I could ever do.
You come back after all that, and like all the noise in your life just got turned down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the deployment had the same effect, where you're in an environment where your job is to like stay alive and keep your soldiers alive and take care of them, and you come back and people are like just petty as fuck.
Because you've done like how many deployments?
I've only done one.
You've only done,
But it was a year.
I've only done one deployment.
Well, some people have done like 6. So.
Well, okay. I mean, in comparison to people that have done, I would say there's probably less people that have done deployment than people that have done deployment.
Yeah, we're kind of getting back to there. I mean, there was a period of time where, like, if you hadn't deployed, like, what's wrong with you? Like, but now we're getting back to,
I've never done deployment.
Well, you're not in the military either.
Ever. So I mean, I can't even wrap my brain around that.
All that to say, I think there's a lot of benefits of doing hard things, whether it's imposed upon you or you intentionally impose it on yourself.
Now, there's kind of a biblical leaning to this, don't you think?
Probably
doing some hard things. I was reading through the notes, and as we're talking about like what's the hardest thing you've ever done, and I think I think some of the things, and I apologize if this is kind of going out of order a little bit, but the stuff that started kind of standing out to me is because we're talking about guys right now, we're talking about dads, how we are built, how God designs us, how God created us. God did create us to do hard things. God did create us to kind of push some physical and mental boundaries, all to His glory. Mm-hmm. But the word that kind of came and stuck out to me as I was reading through some of the stuff that you wrote down was perseverance.
Yeah,
perseverance. And that's a pretty strong biblical theme.
It is. I think we even have a verse on that.
We came prepared. Boom.
So Romans 5:3-5 says, "There is glory to our suffering because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. And the hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us." Yeah, I mean, I think all of these things, whether Christian or not, are an intentional design of I wouldn't say just masculinity, but I mean of being human. I mean, I think it tends to be a little more physical or machismo, when it comes to guys and pushing limits and physical and military and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think that there's like I was kind of saying, I mean, I think the real challenge of that kind of thing isn't physical; it's mental, and I think the lasting effects of it are mental. I wrote down kind of some tips that like I used when things got hard and I was tempted to quit.
Yeah, let's hear those tips.
So one of the things I tell myself is I'll quit tomorrow. Like, let's make it through today and I'll quit tomorrow. Obviously tomorrow never comes. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Eventually you'll make it. Or like when we were doing land nav, we'd say, just one more click. Up over the next hill. A click is
making some short goals here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just you're breaking down the goal into what's right in front of you.
Real manageable steps.
Right. We'd say one more click, which is short per kilometer.
Right.
You're land nabbing. So I mean, I think that's really the principle is that if you get overwhelmed by looking at, okay, here's where I am now, here's my goal, oh my gosh, how am I going to get there? Like, you're probably going to be disheartened and quit. But if you say, okay, one day at a time, this is my plan for today, this is how I'm going to make it through today, and then you take tomorrow, take next day, like, eventually you'll be kicking the ball down the road and you'll make it.
On that point, I feel like maybe it's worthwhile to like that's a really good lesson to have learned, and for you it came through going through special forces training and stuff like that. So obviously you can speak about your experiences in special forces and say hey, we were able to we got 12 clicks to go, we broke it down into one click at a time, that sort of stuff. Like, are you able to take that same learning, that same training now and apply it to just say, obviously not military stuff here, but your everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, I apply it to my entrepreneurship and business every day. I mean, this is where I'm going to go. I'm going to get there by doing this one thing today, or these 5 things, whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, and I'm learning that in parenting with having behavior issues. Okay, well, how are we going to deal with it? Okay, we're going to go through this curriculum. We're going to read this book. We're going to
have this conversation.
Yeah, we're going to have this conversation. Or just reminders of okay, when things get tough, here's some tips, and have them on the fridge or whatever. Just some practical stuff to help you kind of get there one step at a time, because you can't just flip a switch and be like, okay, I'm just going to automatically respond to stressful situations differently.
Right.
You got to train yourself.
Yeah, especially when you're in the midst of the stressful situation. Really, really, really hard to triage and crisis solve the situation when you don't have a plan or any training.
Right. So, I mean, have you ever started something, like a challenge, try to set a new habit, but it didn't stick? You ended up quitting or giving up? I mean, what?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'll go back to exercise. I would say for me to create a long-lasting change in my life, I have to have some sort of motivator.
Okay.
And I probably wouldn't have gone to grad school. I'll come back to exercise, but I probably wouldn't have gone to grad school had I not been married, and had a baby on the way, because there just simply wouldn't have been that urgency, that motivation to provide for a family. I worked a job when I got married that made $20,000 a year, and this was back in 2006, and I mean, it paid bills and stuff like that, but if I wanted to have more kids, if I wanted to have a house and all the things, I had to go and find higher education and more gainful employment, So having that motivator, for sure, I would say was really big. Coming to exercise, so I referenced the Murph, and so that's a real tangible thing. I can grab I can wrap my brain around this, and so when it came to doing pull-ups, push-ups, air squats, I can't wrap my brain around 100, 200, 300.
Yeah, that's a lot of pull-ups.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just sheer volume, you're looking at 600 reps.
Sure.
And then you got a mile run and a mile run. You got a mile run on the front and the back end of this whole thing. So
the back end one was a lot harder.
That's weird. Yeah, I mean, your legs are just toast.
Yeah, you're jelly.
But I broke it up into sets of okay, well, I'm going to do 20 sets of 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats.
Sure.
And it worked out.
Bite-sized pieces.
Bite-sized pieces, and I would on my little whiteboard, I'd tick off every time I went through one round. And so looking at it from a place of 20 rounds, as opposed to oh man, I've still got I've done 50 pull-ups, I still got another 50 to go.
Sure.
It forced me to I don't want to give up. I really don't. I don't want to give up, because the benefit is hey, I'm gonna feel good at the end of this. I did something healthy. I wasn't staring at my screen. I'm gonna feel good about myself because I'm actually working on my body, which I think does translate over into being a good dad. If you feel shitty about yourself as a dad, physically and emotionally, that's gonna come out in your parenting. And so going and exercising and literally getting the crap beat out of you, that's what I'm going to CrossFit for, is just getting the crap beat out of me.
Yeah.
Has helped me be more patient and slow things down in the way that I parent.
Sure.
Anyways, bite-sized chunks, all of that sort of stuff. I hope that answered your question.
Sure. No, I mean, it's good. It's not like there's a right or wrong answer. Well, there's probably a wrong answer, but
There probably is.
no, I mean, I think that's good because I mean, there's a lot of factors that that drive us to do these things or be successful. From, you know, you could categorize them as healthy, unhealthy, you know, but I mean, I think there's a certain aspect of like the camaraderie, the accountability that comes with military environment, with CrossFit environment, you know, where it's set up that you're encouraging each other, you're friendly competition with one another. You don't want to be embarrassed by being the guy that quits. Didn't have.
No, yeah, exactly.
Didn't have it.
You want to. I mean, at the very least, you want to be the individual that says, you want to be the guy that's like, I didn't give up.
Yeah. Well, and the end result of that is you feel really good about yourself, and you realize like you could do way more than you think you can.
Yeah.
And in a military environment or in a CrossFit environment, like you're not the one creating that motivation. Like you're relying on someone else to do that for you, or the group environment. And I think that's really good. I mean, it's really healthy. I mean, I've always kind of been that way, and the military has served kind of that purpose for me of like, okay, well, I've got a school coming up and I have to perform. I know I need to be at this certain standard, so it keeps me motivated to keep, stay in shape. Once I became a warrant officer, I didn't really have that. Warrant officers are known for like having their, walking around with their coffee and skipping, physical training formations. They're
a little more flabby. Is that what you're saying?
They tend to be a little older and crustier, a little wiser, if you will. But they're not known for their physical robustness.
Sure.
But it also feels good being like the old guy in the unit at 43 or whatever, and coming in and like physically,
you can still dominate the 20-year-olds.
Outperforming, the youngsters.
Yeah.
Now, granted, not being military intelligence, that's not saying a lot because they're not like infantry or something, but a bunch of computer nerds.
You could probably do 100 push-ups on those guys any day.
Not right now, but I'm getting there. That's why I'm doing the 74 hard. So I was kind of thinking, what are some of those factors that make or break the success of challenging ourselves to do more, to do something hard? I mean, off the top of your head, what
are some of the factors?
Yeah.
I think having an appropriate motivator, as well as having some fairly realistic expectations of, for whatever the goal is, as well as, knowing yourself, knowing your limits and knowing your boundaries, most of the time when you're challenging yourself to do something, you have to have some awareness of what your limitations and your boundaries are, because eventually you will kind of push past them.
Sure.
Not just butt up against them.
Right. Well, and that can be difficult too, because like, it's good to be pushed to. It's good to know yourself. It's also good to allow yourself to be pushed. Like with my military training and physical training, I don't when I was doing CrossFit, like I didn't really feel like I had anything to prove. And so when I was hitting, my physical, like, okay, I know if I push past this, I'm going to injure myself. Like being able to pull back from that, as opposed to like not knowing that you have that limit, but also but then balancing that out with not making excuses for pushing yourself to, discomfort. But yeah, it's good. It's good to know your limits, for sure.
Absolutely.
I'd say, the big things that come to mind for me are like, no accountability. Like you're going solo.
Yeah.
And whether you're a Christian or you're working out,
being the lone wolf, right?
Or you're grad school. Like you try to do that by yourself, and it's going to be a much harder road.
No, that's actually a really good point that I forgot about. Like, I know that in some previous episodes we kind of razzed on the whole accountability thing, because sometimes it gets done wrong.
Sure.
But I think
or
there
some
are
shame involved.
Exactly. The shame element. But I think there's a good way that accountability does happen, and I've seen it happen pretty consistently within the CrossFit community. Like people, I remember the first year that I joined, it was like within the first 6 months, like I got sick and I didn't show up to the gym for 3 months, and I was still not in the rhythm of like, I got to push through this.
And you were still paying?
What's that?
You were still paying?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And
you're so generous.
I know, right? Here you go.
It's not cheap.
And I ran into a member at the gym, at like Fred Meyer, and they're like, "Hey, we haven't seen you in the gym in a while. Is everything okay? What's going on? And these are people that are not Christians. These are people that are like, the idea of living in a godly community, like that's a foreign concept to them. But they still had this kind of community concept, this accountability concept that was still there, because they're like, "Hey, we'd love to see you back there.
Right.
Even if the only time that we interact with you is in the context of the gym, we'd love to see you back.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's very intentionally built into the CrossFit community. And I will say, each CrossFit gym or box, has different.
It's different. You're right.
Different.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen some real toxic ones. I've seen ones that are really great.
Right.
But I say in general, you've got like that particular CrossFit gym will have a culture, and then you almost got like this micro family, especially if you're consistent with like a certain time frame that you always go. Like you really get to know
Totally.
the people.
Totally. Go to the 10:45, go to the 9:30
Right.
class. On a any day of the week, and I'm always running into the same people. You get to know them.
Right. Exactly. I'd say also, a key thing that people lack that makes them fail in this kind of thing is like no structure. They don't have a plan. Mm-hmm. They're just kind of winging it. I'd also say people not being willing to to change their habits or be inconvenienced, which I think is a big one.
I mean, that's a big. I mean, that's great that you mentioned that, because it is big whenever you're making any changes in your life for the better. Sacrifice is generally a pretty big component of that.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of the idea with one of the elements of the 75 hard is one of them has to be outside, which means you're going to have inclement weather. You're going to be inconvenienced. You're going to be uncomfortable.
Especially here in Seattle. I mean, like we got a decent day right now, but most of the time during these months, it's cold, it's rainy, it's dreary. You're like, I don't want to go work out.
Right. And the guy who started this is like, but that's going to like create a toughness in you and a sense of accomplishment. Like you're going to be the only one out there. Like no one else is going to be out there. Like you're making the tough decision to like go out and you get that a lot in like CrossFit or military community. Like we like to say in the military, like there's community and shared suffering.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you see that huge with like the harder it is, the more extreme it is, like the stronger the bonds. I mean, the special force, the SFAS was a 3-week course, and like I'm still friends with those people, and that was 12 years ago, 14 years ago, whatever it was.
I bet you like you go back and reminisce about those shared experiences,
exactly.
and you guys are right back there. You know it, and like that, and that creates such a unbreakable bond.
Right. Well, and basic trainings is another one for a lot of people. Yeah. Depending on what the career trajectory, the military people take, basic training is like one of the hardest things they've done. For me, I knew what I was getting into with special forces stuff, so like basic training was kind of a joke. But for a lot of people, like that was kind of the hard thing because they're having this rude awakening from moving from mom and daddy's house to like, oh, drill sergeant's yelling at me. I've got to get up and make my bed. Oh my God, what am I gonna do?
I got to get my boots shined.
Yeah, and it's very intentionally a culture shock, to go into the from the civilian world into the military world. Like that's part of the experience,
No, those are great points. I love those. I love those points. The shared experiences. That's great stuff.
Yeah, shared suffering. It's good stuff.
Shared suffering.
Shared suffering.
It translates to shared experience. Anyways.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'd say that people really do what they want to do. I think I don't remember where I picked that up, but I mean, it seems to be pretty true. I mean, essentially, if you want something, you'll make it happen. If you care enough about it, you'll make it happen. Yeah. So if people are like, well, I want to get in shape, but you don't really want to get in shape.
If you make a ton of excuses, you're just going to be left with what you already have.
Right. And that gets back to like the inconvenience factor. Like, well, basically, you want to be a better person, but you don't want to have to pay anything for it. So you don't really care about being a better person.
You're not ready to sacrifice, I guess.
Well, this kind of brings me to, kind of a story I was thinking of. And I don't know if this is my military training or what, but I mean, I remember kind of specifically thinking about, so like the first real estate office I was in, there's some big wig real estate agents that, made tons of money, super successful. They kind of had it all. They had, vacation houses, and they smoked expensive cigars and, whatever, and they kind of had it all, but they're like fat and out of shape. And I'm just like thinking, I don't really respect you.
You want to be that.
Yeah. And maybe that's my judgmentalness against people who are like physically out of shape. So maybe that reflects more on my character than on theirs. But to me, I'm like, you don't have discipline. You can't even take care of yourself physically. You're pursuing a life of comfort and ease. That's how I interpret that. And so, I mean, to me, I kind of took a mental note of like, okay, even if I accomplish all of the world's successes, but if I lose my health and I let myself go because I'm pursuing comfort and ease, what's that say about me, about my character, about what I'm willing to do,
Right.
to me, when I see someone who's physically fit, I'm like, they've got discipline. Like,
Mm-hmm.
now, granted, you can have all sorts of, varying degrees of motivation for that. From like, I'm just vain and I want people to fawn over me.
Yeah.
To
Instagram helps with that.
Right. Yes. So I'm not necessarily saying like they're a better person or holy or whatever, but I think there's a certain level of like taking care of yourself holistically. Whether that's continually reading and learning, take care of your body, eating well, being a good parent,
Yep.
whatever that translates
Yep.
into, Feel free to interject while I'm looking over my notes here.
Yeah, no, I like. It's hard for me to really dispute or add any more to what you're saying, but like I love the overall theme of what we're trying to get at, because I don't know that's anything that we've really touched on too much. Maybe elements in indirect ways within previous episodes, but like we're talking about like not giving up, not giving up, and we're talking about persevering, and I think there's a lot of like we can draw upon our past experiences, grad school, military, exercise rhythms and stuff like that, and say like, well, this is how I didn't give up. But like, there's a lot of application here to being a dad. There's a lot of application.
I agree.
Because I mean, as we are, we're a dad podcast seeking to, like I say in every episode, love dads through the person and work of Jesus Christ. And here we are. We're talking about how not to give up, and that we go through hard things, whether it be intentional or unintentional. And I think God gives us, Jesus Christ gives us the Holy Spirit to allow us to persevere in community, which is a very biblical thing.
Yeah.
Because we can't do it on our own, and we were never meant to do it on our own. And so, because there's going to be lots of other people within community that have maybe, they're just veterans of life, and they know how to persevere in hard times, be it marriage, be it parenting. And man, dude, I don't know about you. Actually, I do know about you.
Okay.
Yeah, I do know about you.
What do you know about me?
Parenting's hard.
Yeah.
Parenting's hard, man. Yeah. And there's plenty of times I know for myself where I just want to be like, I'm done. I'm ready to.
I've actually said that before. I'm done. I'm out.
I haven't said I'm going to sell my kids.
I'd give away.
But I've thought about like, hey, can I just go drop them off at the Goodwill? All in jest. Obviously in jest. I would never do that. Probably more like Value Village. But
sure. At a friend's house, whatever.
But there's been plenty of times where I'm just like, dude, I'm done. I'm done being dad. I just want to check out.
Sure.
But I think God gives us community, like we're talking about, and I think God gives us the experiences that we go through to build faith and trust in Him. That ultimately He's good. Ultimately He's going to see us through this stuff that is tough. Ultimately He's the motivator,
right.
And that on the other end we're going to be better for it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully. I mean, I think that's the goal, and I'd say that's the outworking. I mean, as you're saying, I think how this applies to dads or parenting specifically, is are we parenting and disciplining in a way that glorifies God? Because I mean, that's going to require the hard things. I mean, I was trying to remember, the truism the other day to tell my son, essentially, like everything that's worth anything in life is hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I think I've said that a number of times myself.
I mean, the things that come easy typically have very little value to them. I mean, they're not going to add to your life greatly.
Amen to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, disciplining out of love and care for your kids' hearts, not just behavioral compliance. I mean, that's something I'm continually struggle with. I mean, that is going to be, choosing the hard road of inconvenience, because, you're going to be late to things, because you're going to have to, have a talk with them.
Yep.
You're going to be inconvenienced. It's... You're choosing the harder route. I'd say carving out regular time with your kids, to show them that they matter and that you care about them, as opposed to, just interacting with them whenever they inconvenience you, or they need to be disciplined. That's going to create a pretty unhealthy expectation in their life about what the role of a dad is. He only talks to me when I'm in trouble.
What a great point you just made there. If I can just capitalize on that for a minute, as dads, we don't want to be just the figure, the role within their lives where we're only engaging with them when it's either teaching or like, hey, we got to dish out consequences.
Right, when there's a negative kind of connotation to it.
Yeah.
And then they're going to associate, well, my dad's the disciplinary guy. I can't actually go to him when I need something.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's a fantastic point. Is like not giving up doesn't mean just stepping in there always and being the drill sergeant, no pun intended, but actually like engaging in their life preemptively and creating good experiences with them, good communication habits with them. Yes, parenting, being a dad is oftentimes leading where there is no path, forging a path, I guess, where there is no path, and dealing with correcting behavior and showing Christ, ultimately, hopefully through humility. But yeah, I mean, no, what a fantastic point. I hope if our listeners, our watchers, take anything away from this, it's that point. Is that point. I think that was a great point.
It's a good point.
It's a fantastic point.
If I do say so myself. And in wrapping up, I mean, it seems a little self-evident to me, but to try to put a nice bow on it, I think some of the benefits, and you can add to this if I miss anything, some of the benefits of doing the hard things in life intentionally are mental toughness and resiliency.
Yep, I agree with that.
Physical toughness and endurance.
Yep.
Perspective or mindset.
Yep.
And I think that's huge because, I mean, when you do these things, all of a sudden, as you said, like the noise drops a little in your life.
Does.
Like it puts things into perspective. And I really noticed this, I'll say after my deployment, I kind of touched on it. Like when you're in a different environment where like the basics of life are the priority and you get back to a very affluent, trivial, trite culture, you start seeing it creates a contrast. I mean, I remember, and this is just a physical representation of this, but I remember, after 9 months in the desert and just see brown. I remember landing in Germany and seeing grass, and like it was
that
just,
like a luxury?
It's just like this. It was like this vivid green. Like if you imagine like oversaturated photography, like that's what it was to my eyes of like seeing green, and it's like, wow, like I hadn't seen grass in.
There's like a new appreciation for it.
It's a new appreciation for like the basic things that we see all around us every day.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, when I couldn't, and when I was away for a year, like I can't wait to just give my wife a hug and a kiss. Like I want to appreciate these small things, And so I think intentionally doing hard things creates a perspective that you just won't get by pursuing and giving into ease and comfort and pursuing that.
Agree with that 100%.
I'd say the benefit is gratitude, kind of goes hand in hand with that perspective and mindset.
Yep.
Self-discipline, which I'm, have varying degrees of. And I think you just become happier. I mean, like you accomplish something and it's kind of like a test of like who you are. Like, do I have what it takes to accomplish this? And then the end result is like it's just a satisfaction and joy. And I'd say more confidence. You kind of, as a man, I think, being, kind of knowing what you're made of, or as John Eldredge says, kind of like, do I have what it takes? Kind of what every boy asks.
What's my medal?
Right.
Yeah.
I think those are all huge things. And if you don't ever engage and do the harder things in life, you're going to constantly be going through life feeling like you're a fraud. I mean, and I'd say even having accomplished, and made it through these challenges and tribulations, we still struggle, at least I still struggle with kind of the imposter syndrome or feeling like a fraud. Like I can't imagine what it'd be like if you've never, kind of have anything to be proud of or, push yourself to do in life. I don't know. So, I mean, I guess all that, like, I just want to encourage our listeners, like, if you have an opportunity to challenge yourself with something, like, take it on. Like, gather around with other men, have a Braveheart moment, and, rise up and do the hard thing. You'll be a better person, a better dad, a better man because of it.
I there's not a lot that I would really add to that. Maybe just, there's a couple of points that you made in there, the gratitude and self-discipline that I think is really awesome, because those are very strong biblical themes that we see. If you go back and you read through the Old Testament and the New Testament, I mean, realistically, the whole Bible, you see men and women and specifically men, presented with just kind of like astronomical challenges, out of this world challenges, to push themselves mentally and physically to do the work of God. And while you and I may not be presented with those same challenges, it doesn't mean that what we're presented with or what God puts in front of our path isn't challenging and won't require physical and mental toughness. I think that God places us in these positions so that ultimately, we can love and benefit other dads, other men, other women, moms, wives in our lives, and especially our kids. And he wants us to also use those moments to worship and glorify him, as well as build our own trust in him and our faith in him. And I'm reminded of the scripture, 1 Thessalonians 5:18. It says, give thanks in all your circumstances, for that is the will of God through Christ Jesus for you. And that verse isn't talking about giving thanks for sin, but it is giving thanks in your present circumstances. And your circumstances might be really bad, whatever they might be, but they can certainly always be worse. There is somebody that always has worse circumstances, and somebody that's always maybe more challenged than you. But God is saying, hey, look, I want you to give thanks in these. I want you to be grateful in this. I want you to exercise in self-discipline, because this is going to be the best place and best way that you can function. Giving in, giving up, obsessing about what's going wrong or not going right, or wanting things to be perfect doesn't amount to any level of progress or any further glorification of God.
Right. Yeah, and I kind of add to that, maybe a little footnote that, like, the reason we're giving thanks in those challenges is because it's an opportunity to be reliant and depend on God.
Amen. Amen.
I guess just in closing, I'd say that that God is glorified by us being dependent on him and choosing the better hard things in life than the easy way.
Yeah, 100%.
Sorry. And one other thing.
Yeah.
Don't fall into the trap of comparing yourself to others.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Like, we're only responsible for what God gives us.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you've never worked out a day in your life, don't try to be like, my goal is to become a special forces soldier. Like, just start moving, start exercising, like set some goals for you. Like, you don't have to be that, competitive CrossFit guy down the street. Like, there's not a one size fits all for like what is challenging for people. Yep. But I do think, whether it's picking up a book and starting to read, better yourself, or physical exercise, whatever, like, set some sort of something that's outside your comfort zone and start doing that.
Amen. Well, shall we wrap it up?
Yeah.
We've been wrapping it up.
Yeah, wrapping it up.
Well, Christian, I've enjoyed the conversation thoroughly. Well-picked topic. So with that said, dads, as always, like we say in every episode, because we sincerely believe it and we sincerely want to communicate it, is we love you and we care about you, and Jesus loves you and Jesus cares about you, and he knows that there are hard things that are going on in your life, and the hard things that are going on in your life may differ from the hard things that are going on in another dad's life, but that doesn't dismiss the fact that it could be hard. And so Jesus invites you to trust in him, to build faith in him, because ultimately he's the one that creates the foundation, and he's the one that gives you the fortitude to be able to see it through, whatever it may be. It might be parenting, it might be a project at work, it might be overcoming some sort of sin in your life, it might be marriage, but Jesus is the one that empowers you to be able to do that. And so in everything that we're communicating today, doing hard things is good. Doing challenging things is good, as long as the focus is like, hey, I want to grow in my trust and faith within God. I want to glorify him. And so we want to communicate to you, dads, is don't give up. Don't give up. And know that God loves you. And so please do check us out on the socials. YouTube video now, which hopefully will get better as time goes on, but I already think it's kind of cool. So we got the YouTube videos.
Got the YouTubes.
We got the YouTubes. Instagram, as always, we love communicating with all of you guys that out there on Instagram and Facebook, as well as check out Blackfin Coffee. I know it's kind of like a little plug there, but we love our friend Brian Jenkins. owner of Blackfin Coffee. Please check him out. Love that. Check out also the good guys over at the Honest Cigar Experience for their podcast. They focus a lot on good cigars. If you want to learn a little bit more about them, as well as getting into dad topics, faith topics, mental health topics, we appreciate all that they do. Check them out. And am I missing anything?
Cheers. Drink some good whiskey.
Cheers. Drink some good whiskey, guys. Meantime, take care.